On the 31st of July 1969, a nervous Elvis Presley stepped out onto the stage of the International Hotel in Las Vegas after an 8-year absence from live performance. The show was a triumph, a culmination of a long, hard journey for Elvis to show the world who he really was as an artist. Not only the greatest performer on earth, but the most emotional interpreter of the American songbook that ever existed. But the triumph was brief and the end was not pretty.
This is a song that I just recorded, and it's an old song called Unchained Melody. I had to play the piano, so it'll take just a second.
The grind of over 600 Vegas shows in 8 years eventually killed the king. For many, this cartoon image of Elvis is the one that endures. A bloated, drug-addled figure belting out tired standards. But even in this befuddled state in South Dakota just weeks before he died, Elvis could still dig deep to find the artist within.
Time goes by so slowly, and time...
This film will pull back the curtain on the glory of Elvis's Vegas years to show how he created the legend that lives on to this day.
Time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much for you. Still you ain't nothing but a hound dog, you're crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine.
In 1956, Elvis Presley shook up the world. Tall, dark and preternaturally handsome, this dirt-poor southern boy scandalized segregated America when he performed Hound Dog on NBC's Milton Berle show.
You ain't nothing but a hound.
This was a white man sullying the nation and its women with the black sounds and moves he had grown up amongst.
I believe that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Crying all the time.
I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it.
You ain't no friend of mine.
I know how it feels. I know what it does to you.
He was good looking.
Let me tell you.
He was really good looking, I said.
He was really good looking, and he had this amazing energy.
Elvis was a phenomenon, the biggest star of the 50s. Key to the Elvis success story was the relationship with his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, the mastermind behind the King's meteoric rise from small-time country star to global superstar. Parker's beginnings were in the world of carnivals, where he ran a very particular sideshow.
He told me his act in the carny was the dancing chicken. He said, I used to get a hot plate, cover it with straw, play the music Turkey in the Straw behind it, and then I would take a chicken and put it on the hot plate, and the chicken would look like it was dancing.
But Colonel Parker came from carnivals, so he recognized instantly what was going to draw people into the big tent. And Elvis was sort of a hoochie-coochie girl. He never understood him artistically. He never got the music. He just was amazed, flummoxed that people thought it was good.
Parker mesmerized the young Elvis, who felt indebted to him for the rest of his life. In the beginning, their partnership worked. While Presley was the king of rock and roll, Parker was the king of the deal.
When Elvis started breaking through, somebody told the Colonel, "Colonel, I like your boy Elvis. I'll give you $1 million to book him." The Colonel said, "You got it. Now what you gonna give Elvis?"
The money flowed, and soon Parker was plotting Elvis's next move.
Say you ain't laid awake every night by my side thinking of it. Wishing I was Vance. Wishing you'd waited for him and never married me.
Following the tradition of singers like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, the Colonel sent his boy to Hollywood, negotiating a multi-picture deal that would earn Elvis millions. In 1956, Love Me Tender was one of the highest-grossing movies in the world. What could possibly go wrong?
Hollywood's image of me was wrong, and I knew it, and I couldn't say anything about it. I couldn't do anything about it. I don't know. It's nobody's fault, maybe except my own. I didn't know what to do. I just felt I was obligated very heavily to, a lot of times, to things that I didn't fully believe in. It worried me sick, you know. So I became violently ill, physically, emotionally, everything.
Elvis's career had crashed. The main problem was the movies. He was being cast in a series of increasingly frivolous dramas designed to showcase his music, but the template had got very tired.
And the pictures got very similar, you know. If something was successful, I'd try to recreate it the next time around. The songs were mediocre in most cases, you know. I had thought that they would give me a chance to show some kind of acting ability or do a very interesting story. But it did not change. It did not change.
Parker, you know, was a formula person. He had a formula. It was working. No Elvis movie ever lost money. So why mess with a good thing?
Around Elvis, things had changed dramatically. He had disappeared from the charts since 1965, supplanted by a new breed of pop stars that wrote their own material. Elvis was reliant on songwriters to provide him with good material, but Parker's obsession with the deal was getting in the way.
He's your uncle, not your dad. He's the best friend you ever had. So come on, dig, dig, dig in until it hurts. Just remember Pearl Harbor.
Parker demanded a cut of everything, and that included up to 50% of the songwriter's publishing royalties. But Elvis's absence from the charts meant only second-raters applied for the gig.
So just bring everything until you need, and he'll send back what he don't need.
The result was songs like He's Your Uncle, Not Your Dad, from the movie Speedway.
Temptation.
He was still making movies in '67 when pop music in America was either protest music or psychedelic music or time for the hippies, and Elvis looked very quaint there.
To reboot his career, Elvis needed to reconnect with young people. he found a most unlikely entry point through his hairstylist, Larry Geller.
Elvis wanted to learn. He knew that there was this big psychedelic culture happening with the Beatles and marijuana and all this stuff. He heard everyone's doing LSD. He said, Larry, I want to do LSD, but I'm not going to do it unless you tell me it's okay. I said, yeah. He said, well, you got to do it with me. I said, okay. Said, absolutely. So Elvis and Priscilla and myself went upstairs and we dropped LSD. About 2, 3 in the morning, we all went for a walk in the back of Graceland, and we were looking at the stars, and there was a peacock back there, and we were all fascinated with the peacock. But we got into some wonderful conversations. It was very positive.
By the end of that summer, Elvis had made a career-defining decision.
Elvis and I were in the bathroom, and I'm doing his hair. He wasn't saying anything, he was just looking off in the distance. He was pensive. And all of a sudden I said, man, why am I still making these movies? I'll always be a singer. Singing is my life's blood.
Elvis immediately began a journey to regain control of his musical career. His first item of business was the songs themselves. Elvis knew he couldn't just retread his former rock and roll glory. Nonetheless, to find the sound of his future, he looked deep into his past.
Hiya, Roy. You all set to go? Okay, let's cut one.
His musical hero, seen here in a rare movie appearance, was Roy Hamilton.
My chickadee, come here to me.
An obscure R&B singer who greatly influenced Elvis's early vocal style.
Roy had a record called I'm Gonna Hold On Tight and Don't Let Go.
Oh, shucks. Well, I won't stop for $1,000,000. I love you so. I just hold it tight and don't let go.
Hold on tight and don't let go. Oh, he's a oh. Elvis goes, that's got to be the bottom part of my voice. And Elvis just grabbed it, okay?
So who do you think of when your house says you lock them in love? Come on, shook up.
Hamilton had managed to extend his career by abandoning the youthful energy of his early R&B hits for a measured string of ballads aimed at a more mature audience, as he demonstrates here in the movie Let's Rock.
My father was an amazing balladeer. He had a great operatic and gospel type style. He a big booming voice, and it was like I would say I would call him the Black Caruso of music, rhythm and blues, the Black Caruso of rhythm and blues.
Walk on through the rain.
If Hamilton could do this, why not Elvis? So it was to the later Hamilton that the King looked for his own second coming. On the 10th of September 1967, Elvis booked into RCA Studio B in Nashville with his producer Felton Jarvis to record the Rodgers and Hammerstein ballad You'll Never Walk Alone, which had been a hit for Hamilton back in the 50s.
Long home.
What I think Elvis took from my father is the big sound, the big voice, a strong vibrato. That gospel flavor, you know, being that Elvis was also a very spiritual person. He just kind of adapted that style, and it worked.
You'll Never Walk Alone was not a hit, but it heralded a new direction for the King. Elvis determined that his future would be as a balladeer aimed at a mature audience. But it was a direction that set him on a collision course with the Colonel, who had something very different in mind for the King's next move. Parker planned an old-fashioned Christmas TV special and chose a young hotshot producer. But in Steve Binder, he found a man with his own vision.
I went out to see the Colonel, and he told me Elvis is going to come on, say hello to his audience, sing 20 Christmas songs, say goodbye, and that was the show. Nothing else. In my head at the time when he told me that, I knew that's not what I'm going to do or want to do. So Elvis came to my office, and the first thing he asked me is, what do you think of my career? And I said, just spurt it out. I think your career's in the toilet. He laughed. At first he didn't. At first he sort of stared me down, and then all of a sudden he broke out into laughter. And he said, you're the first guy who's actually, you know, spoken the truth to me in years. And he said, I agree with you.
Binder and Elvis formed an alliance against Parker's Christmas-themed show and hatched a plan to use the TV special as a career relaunch. The first job of the special was to demonstrate that Elvis, the man who shook up the world 10 years earlier, could still do it.
Elvis would always go into his dressing room after we finished rehearsing and jam until 3, 4 in the morning. I knew, even though we were doing all these big production numbers, nothing touched him being Elvis himself in the dressing room improvising. So I was bugging the Colonel every single minute. I want cameras in there. Finally, the Colonel said, okay, if you want to recreate it on stage, I'll let you, but I won't promise you you can use it in the show. It was always that little extra thing.
He's coming out with not even a band. Then they're going to go out there and do something. He plays Baby What You Want Me to Do. He's playing electric guitar, which no one's ever seen him do before. But he's picking up on something, he's getting interested in something, and what he's getting interested in is the rhythm in the song. And it's suddenly as if no one has ever really heard that what this song is about is a certain rhythm. It has nothing to do with the words, it has nothing to do with the vocal, there's no idea in it. It is a rhythm that is asking to be made bigger, to go farther, and to become a thing in itself. And he just pushes and pushes and pushes. And he makes a moan, he makes a sound. One of his friends, you know, shouts at him. And it's as extraordinary a piece of pure rock and roll, pure rhythm and blues as you'll ever hear anywhere. And it is coming together in that moment. that is a matter of both the song serving Elvis, because he needs this opportunity, he needs this template, but it's really Elvis serving the song. The song always wanted to be more than anybody made it, and that day it got to be what it wanted to be.
The set proved that Elvis still had it, but it was in the show's finale, around the now iconic Giant Elvis sign, that the King and Binder needed to showcase the new Elvis. This led to the inevitable showdown with Parker.
I get ordered to go see the Colonel in his office with Elvis. And the Colonel says, "Boys, it's been called to my attention that there are no Christmas songs in the show. I want to hear from you, Bindle, why there are no Christmas songs in the show." And I said, "Because we've gone a totally different direction. But if Elvis wants a Christmas song in the show, I'll put one in." So the Colonel says, "Okay, that's clear. Elvis, Steve is going to give you a Christmas song to sing in the show. Is that clear?" And Elvis mutters, "Yes, sir," or something like that. And he said, "Okay, since that's settled, you boys can leave." And we turn around, we walk out. As soon as we get out of earshot, Elvis jams me in the ribs and says, "Fuck 'em." That was it. So I never worried about putting a Christmas song in the show.
There must be lights burning brighter somewhere. Got to be birds flying higher in a sky more blue. If I can dream of a better land where all my brothers walk hand in hand, tell me why, oh why, oh why can't my dream come true?
It was about Martin Luther King. You know, it's in December of 1968. King has been assassinated that spring. The song is clearly based on the speech that Martin Luther King gave at the March on Washington in 1963. Elvis, who liked to recite the end of that speech, loved that speech. The vehemence in the way he sings it, and the way he just doesn't care if he's hitting the notes properly, if he's fitting into the rhythmic structure of the song, that he just is outside of all of those lines. That's what gives the song its power. You believe it.
After I edited the show, put it together, and so forth, the great part was watching a man rediscover himself. He went on and did that 68 special and resurrected his career. I thought we would be great friends for life. The last day I saw him, he handed me a quickly scribbled telephone number, said, "If you try and reach me, this is the number to call." Like he knew he was being watched and monitored by Parker. And I called that number the next day to talk to him. And by that time, the Colonel made sure that I was persona non grata in the Elvis world. So I never saw him again or talked to him again after that.
The Elvis Comeback Show was the most watched television special of that year. In the public consciousness, Elvis was back, but now he needed to consolidate by recording some hit records after his absence from the charts. He needed fresh, cutting-edge talent. The answer lay close to home.
Being good isn't always easy, no matter how hard I try. When he started
Memphis had recently developed its own successful Southern soul sound based around Stax Records.
Can I get away again tonight? The only boy
One of the Stax producers, Chip Smoman, left the label to set up his own recording studio, American Sound.
who could ever teach me.
He successfully re-energized Dusty Springfield's ailing career by adding the groove of Memphis to her soulful voice
He was
in songs like Son of a Preacher Man.
the only one that ever reached me. He was the sweet doggy son of a preacher man. The only one that ever teach me. I can still son of a preacher man.
Although this home movie footage seems to show Elvis the family man on daughter Lisa Marie's first Christmas, behind the scenes, he was eager to talk business.
It's Christmas time. We're having like our Christmas dinner at Graceland, and Elvis is in a fantastic mood. He's so happy because the TV show is great, and he's getting great reviews and all. And Elvis stood up, straightened himself up, looked around the table, and he said, "You get that studio from Chip Smoman. I want to stay here and record at home. I want good songs, and I want good musicians." And I said, "Elvis, they got great musicians over there. They'll just knock your socks off."
I mean, we'd been recording so many people, it's hard to impress us with an artist, you know. But I'll never forget, we're standing around the studio and the back door opened, and he walked in, and gosh, we all took a step too backwards, you know. Whoa, that's the king. Even though he hadn't had a hit in a long time. It was impressive. It was very impressive.
Yeah, he looked like he just stepped off of a movie screen.
Oh, yeah.
The door opens and this group
All
of
these guys.
men walk in, you know, the mafia, as they call them. And then they part, you know, like the parting of the waters, and Elvis walks out. We were so shocked. I'll never forget it. And he was great. I mean, he came over and he shook our hands and introduced himself to each of us. I'm Elvis Presley, like we didn't know, you know, but he was really, really polite.
Yeah.
And kind and
Yeah, sweet.
yeah.
Yeah, cute, wonderful looking.
Yeah.
But he looked real put together.
I had to leave. Oh, shit, man. I had to leave town for a little while.
He really got into our groove, you know, the way we recorded.
Oh, God.
And we got down to business. I mean, he had a ball. He just became one of the guys, you know.
He really tried. He
Yeah.
really wanted it.
Yeah.
You said you'd be good while I was gone. But to look in your eyes and...
That slide was good, but it seemed like it was a little out of tune there, Richard.
One of the first songs of the session, In the Ghetto, seemed an unlikely fit for Elvis. But thematically it represented a perfect follow-up to the gentle political message of If I Can Dream.
As the snow flies on a cold and gray Chicago morning, a poor little baby child is born in the ghetto.
People don't you understand? A child needs a helping hand. He'll grow to be an angry young man someday.
Now take a look at you and me. Are we too blind to see? Do we simply turn our heads and look the other way?
And a real different song for him. I mean, his management didn't want him singing about a ghetto, you know. And so Chips, you know, told them if they didn't release it on Elvis, he was going to cut it on somebody else. And I guess that's when they got off of their duff and went ahead and put it out.
Little boy with a runny nose plays in the street as the cold wind blows in the ghetto.
In the ghetto. Can you do it again? How's that?
It has been a while. Good.
Elvis's judgment was vindicated when In the Ghetto became a massive worldwide hit, reaching number 3 in America, his first top 10 hit for 4 years. The atmosphere in American sound studios was already euphoric when in walked Roy Hamilton, who had not only inspired Elvis's 50s career, but was his role model for this career relaunch. It was Elvis's first and only meeting with his musical hero. The King took the opportunity to give back to the man from whom he had borrowed so much in the only way he knew how.
Elvis actually gave my dad a song entitled Angelica.
Each night I meant to sing.
He said, I was going to cut it tonight or tomorrow night, but Roy, you can out-sing me on it. I'd like for you to have this song, if you take it, please. And Roy took it, and he cut it, and I'm going to tell you, man, he sang the hell out of it.
The shadow had been cast, too many springs had passed for Angelica, sweet Angelica.
The song wasn't the hit that Elvis hoped for, and sadly, a few months later, Hamilton was rushed to hospital following a massive stroke.
So Elvis was very distraught, and he sent my mother Rose every day that my dad was in the hospital. When my father did finally pass away through all the complications from the stroke, Elvis sent my mother flowers for 6 months after he passed away.
But it was towards the end of the session that Elvis really struck gold. Songwriter Mark James was desperate for Elvis to hear one of his songs that he'd recorded a few months earlier with the same musicians.
All I knew was a perfect vehicle to put him over. He needed a rock song with a more mature theme to it.
We're caught in a trap. I can't walk out because I love you too much, baby.
I went to Chips and I said, you got to play Suspicious Minds to Elvis when he comes in. And he said, you think it's a hit? And I said, I know so. And man, he knew, he saw it in my eyes. And when Elvis came in the studio with his entourage guys, when he put on Suspicious Minds, Elvis says, let's hear that again.
We can't go on together with suspicious minds.
So we started doing it with Elvis, but we cut it pretty much like Mark did.
I mean, we went straight in the studio and started working on it.
Because the arrangement was as good as we could get it, I guess.
Yeah. It was a good arrangement.
It was, and
whatever it is, the emotion on the tracks went to a new level too.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it went to a higher level with everybody. You know, and it's like it made you want to dance when we got through with it. You know.
As the recording was completed, the Colonel's usual publishing arrangement came into play.
They wanted a piece of the song, or half of it.
But Parker hadn't reckoned with the formidable force that was Chips Moman.
The two guys from Colonel Parker jump up and say, whoa, wait, we got to call Colonel Parker on this. We got to call Parker. And so Chips said, you ain't calling nobody, motherfucker. Chips would cuss a lot.
And he told him, he says, I'll tell you what. He says, I'm going to take this master outside of my parking lot and set fire to it. He says, before I'm going to do that. Well, Elvis said, wait a minute, what's he trying to do? I mean, well, he said, we don't need to, you're upsetting Chips, and he kind of backed everybody off, told everybody leave him alone.
Just save that last one, Chips. Okay.
And that was the first time that Elvis or the Colonel didn't get any piece of the publishing at all. And think that all that is because of Chips.
I'm saving the last take for me.
Chips Moman successfully protected the publishing of Suspicious Minds for Mark James and himself. Moman had won the battle with Parker, but would ultimately lose the war. The Memphis recording should have been the beginning of a long and fruitful relationship between Moman and Elvis. Parker thought otherwise, and saw to it that Elvis would never record with Moman and the Memphis Boys again. But Parker anyway was preoccupied with bigger things. He had just signed the King to $1 million contract for a residency in the International Hotel, Las Vegas.
It's very easy to tar Colonel Parker as the villain, but he was very shrewd for Elvis, and he kept him in the public eye constantly until his death. So it was Colonel who figured out, well, if the records die, make sure you have moving pictures lined up. If the movies die, make sure you can take it into some place like Vegas.
To showcase the new mature Elvis, he needed a much fuller sound. He handpicked a large band with no less than 8 backing singers. Elvis took control of the rehearsals, as witnessed in the documentary That's the Way It Is.
Okay. The horns are answering it there. If you need a friend. It's right on top of friend. Look at it.
Nothing Elvis did was choreographed. He didn't have a stage manager. He didn't have a producer for the show. Basically, Elvis did what he wanted to do. The first night, there were so many stars in the audience. Cary Grant, Sammy Davis Jr., Juliet Prowse, everybody in the entertainment business were there for that show. Because this was Elvis Presley coming back to doing live concerts after a long period of time.
I just can't help believing she's lying just beside me, and my heart beats with the rhythm of her side.
The only one right there, that first verse. You got the rest of it.
I'll get through the first one. I got it.
Right.
Got it made, man.
He was really concerned that after such a long period of where he wasn't on stage, that the people might not like him as much. The minute he walked on the stage, it all went away because the applause was deafening.
We went to Vegas, and I went with him. Oh, he's opening in Vegas. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I got a song I'd like to see what you think about." And he sang Suspicious Minds. The crowd went nuts.
We're caught in a trap. I can't walk out because I love you too much, baby.
But I have to tell you, I was knocked out with the show. He was the package. Elvis was beautiful to look at. I thought he was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen, okay? He looked better in person than he did on film, I thought.
Won't let our love survive, oh no. Oh, dry the tears from your eyes. Let's don't let a good thing die, oh no. 'Cause honey, you know I've never lied to you.
There's not an ounce of fat on that body. He's working out into a karate, and he was really good at it. He was really good at it.
Caught in a trap. I can't walk out because I love you too much.
He had a good team at that point in his life. The band was outrageous. They were over the top, you know. And of course, we wouldn't go over the top in the studio, but you needed that. You know, we would usually record the original tracks, like that movie, That's the Way It Is. And in the film, you will see, of course, they're going to stretch them out, make them longer, pick up the tempo.
Suspicious Minds sold 40 million copies. It's the biggest record ever cut in Memphis, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we made $70 or $80.
Something like that. It's cheap back then.
The first shows in Las Vegas, they're fantastic. Just in terms of the way he is on stage, the way he jokes about himself, the way he's having a wonderful time. It's just confidence is everywhere. This is not a guy who was a puppet, not a guy who wasn't aware of both himself and the world around him.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, about how I got into this business and when.
Elvis took the opportunity to reflect back on his early days and the hatred heaped on him as the white Southern man who dared to bring black music to a white audience.
A lot of the things that happened from my side of the story.
You know, he talks about being a kid in Memphis, and people would see me on the streets, and they'd come running, and they'd say, "Get him. Get him. He looks like he just came out of the trees."
You think he's freaking out, long hair and sideburns, man. 14 years ago, you couldn't walk down the street. Get him! Get him! Not now, get him! Watch him, he's just out of the trees, man.
And then he says, you know, I had a record, and the record got on the radio, and everybody is saying, "Is he? Is he?" And I'm saying, "Am I? Am I?"
It became pretty big overnight in my hometown. You know, people were saying, "Who is he? What is he? Is he? Is he?" You know, I'm saying, "Am I? Am I?"
And what does that mean? They're saying, "Is he black?" And he's saying, "Am I black?" I mean, what an extraordinary thing to be telling these, you know, hundreds of people, and in such a hilarious and beautiful way. You know, Mark Twain couldn't have written that better.
I really missed the live contact because that was always where it was at for me. It was in front of people. And so the whole idea is to tell you from my side what happened a little bit. That's all.
He's telling them stuff that sound like things he's never told anybody. And he was bringing the crowd into the notion that they're in on some kind of secret. You know, this is some kind of little secret society for the night.
The Colonel tied Elvis into a long-term contract in Vegas. The town suited them both. For Elvis, Vegas presented the most glittering stage in the world, where he could give free expression to his utterly unique performing style. And in the white heat of the Nevada desert, Parker, the ex-carnival huckster, had found the biggest tent on the planet for his boy. The stage was set for the greatest show on earth.
He really blossomed. I mean, he became monumental. He reached the height that anybody would dream of. It was like a circus when he came out. Every major celebrity would come and see him and just gawk.
It was a different Elvis when he started playing in Las Vegas. And he definitely put on the glitz. The costumes, the neon signs invited you to, they lured you to, they dared you to.
Key to the Elvis glitz in Vegas was the iconic jumpsuit.
They had to be bold and they had to be rich. Vegas is Vegas. You have showgirls everywhere, and he can't be muted in the middle of the stage. So I started hiding tons of miniature mirrors and bigger rhinestones and more vivid colors and more definite shapes in the embroidery that they show to somebody sitting in the back. That was the first suit that became a standard, which is I went very elaborate with the America theme and his love for America and so on. I had eagles going down his sleeves, down his legs, and there was a matching eagle cape. Different jewels and nail heads making blast effects and so on, but it became his jeweled era. Now that started snowballing. Did an Arabian suit for him, which was one of his favorites. I love Egyptian, I love native artwork. And actually this was influenced by the Ten Commandments. Yul Brynner wore this great armor that inspired this. The fact that he enjoyed the stuff that I was turning out just inspired me more and more to have more fun because he was having more fun with it.
Oh, I wish I was.
The real showstopper, as we see in the 1972 film Elvis on Tour, was the song American Trilogy. First put together by country music singer Mickey Newbury. It was an unlikely combination of a Confederate anthem, an African-American spiritual, and the Song of the Union.
Dixieland, where I was born. Early Lord, one frosty morn, look away, look away, look away, Dixieland.
It's a really corny idea, and only Elvis could pull that off. Dixie, Battle Hymn of the Republic, and then All My Trials. And All My Trials is where it comes together. That's where it happens. And you just need a voice as beautiful as Elvis's and him singing in his beautiful register to make that work.
So hush, little baby, don't you cry. You know your daddy's bound to die.
Elvis, in a sense, codified Americana. He encapsulated, permeated, embodied, and Las Vegas brought out certain aspects of that. It is so real in its total artificiality. The neon, the green felt tables, the slot machines. Elvis brought his style to it, they took to each other and made it work.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. His truth is marching
The American Trilogy performance summed up how Elvis saw himself and what he meant to America in this period. A good old Southern boy with a deep affinity to African American music and a patriot to his core. The King was at his peak. Elvis mania was back. What could possibly go wrong?
Left the building.
This song is, I just recorded it and it, I don't know, is it out?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks to be out? Unchained Melody. From an album called Unchained Melody. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. How you like it so far?
Elvis was the first act to really make a lot of money for the hotel. And it worked beautifully for the Colonel. It didn't work so beautifully for Elvis because he was the first performer who was booked 7 days a week, which was a killing schedule, and very often 2 shows. Nobody can do that. Nobody can put up with that pace for years and years.
If you ever saw his show, it was very high energy, very up-tempo, very intense. He hardly ever went to bed before daylight. And so he was so keyed up, he needed something to come down. And so he took a pill to go to sleep. So then, about 5 in the afternoon, he was still groggy. So he'd have to have a pill to wake up.
As his weight became a big problem, one of the things I had invented was the two-tone suit. So that the visual was he was slim down the middle and darker on the sides to help with his weight problem. This is one of his more famous suits. That's the Aztec sundial. And luckily, the way the embroidery was done, it was on the suits that was able to be let out more and more as he gained weight.
And he did gain weight. By the mid-70s, Elvis was obese and isolated, and he was dependent on prescription drugs. But more tragically, he seemed to be dying inside.
He said, man, I don't know if I can go on. And we talked, and he said, all right, I'm going to go to sleep. It was about 6 in the morning now. So that afternoon, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm sitting in the living room suite watching television. In the bedroom, his doctor was with Elvis, and he's holding Elvis's head up, and there was a bucket of ice water, and Elvis was groaning. And there was a knock on the door. And I looked through the hole, and lo and behold, there's Colonel Parker. He said, where is he? I said, Elvis is in the bedroom, Colonel. Let me tell him you're here. He said, no, I'm going right in. He comes out a minute and 20 seconds later. He said, Larry, now you listen to me. I was just in there,
And the only thing that's important now is that man is on stage tonight. You hear me? Do you hear what I'm saying? That man has got to be on stage tonight, Larry. He walked out. What?
Parker was enforcing the first rule of the carnival: the show must go on. So it seemed perfectly natural for him to turn up the heat. Parker got his way. Elvis went back out onto the Vegas stage, but the once magisterial presence was no more than a kitsch caricature of his former self. Here was the first Elvis impersonator.
When he realizes that it doesn't matter if he does a good show or a bad show, the response is going to be the same, that the applause is going to be there, that people are going to go nuts seeing him, then he stops pushing. He stops trying. He goes through the motions. He throws it all away.
He just burned out. He said on stage, "I hate Las Vegas." I mean, he just couldn't pretend any longer. But when he would tell the Colonel, "That's it, I'm finished, I'm firing you," the Colonel would turn over a bill for something like $2 million, and he knew that Elvis wouldn't pay that. He didn't have a lot of money going on at that time. The Colonel was always in charge of that relationship. There were times that Elvis got the upper hand, but they were brief. He was not strong enough to stand up to the Colonel.
I'm so hurt to think that you lied to me.
Elvis pulled off one last great vocal performance by going back to his musical hero, Roy Hamilton, to cover his song Hurt. But the Las Vegas adventure was over.
You said
The one-time neon nirvana for both Elvis and the Colonel destroyed them both.
never part.
Parker wittered away his vast fortune on the gambling tables, ending up a greeter in the Hilton Hotel in exchange for his room and board. Elvis died in Graceland on the 16th of August 1977. Sadly, the end casts a shadow over the glory of Elvis's rebirth in the City of Lights.
I'm so hurt.
By taking control of his own career in the Vegas years, and with the impassioned delivery of his most enduring songs, he reached heights that may never be matched.
Though you hurt me like nobody else could ever do, I would never